welcome back to my channel. So before I jump into today's video, please take this moment to hit that red button down below, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, make sure you click that notifications bell so that you'll be notified of every time I post a new video, and leave a comment in this video if you enjoyed it so that way I know to post more videos like this one. Alright, with that being said, let's get into my student teaching experience. So the way that I wanted to make this video was in 4 different parts.
Hi teacher friends, Editing Kate here. So I decided to just cut this video down to 3 different parts and save the 4th part, which was going to be student teacher tips, for its own video. So be on the lookout for that in the future.
So the first part is just going to be a general program setup, the way that my College of Education ran our program and kind of how student teaching was laid out for us. And then the second part is going to be my first semester of student teaching in a 2nd grade class. The third part is going to be my student teaching experience in a 5th grade class. Let's jump into part 1, which is program setup. So I went to San Jose State University in Northern California, and I got my Masters in Education and a multiple subject teaching credential. So it was a dual program, and we did both and got both completed within a 3-semester or 1.5 years time period. Because it was a 1.5 years, my program started in January. It was a big reason why I chose this program. I knew that I wanted to start as soon as possible, and I wanted to graduate in the spring so that way I could apply to jobs over the summer and start my first year of teaching in the fall. So the first semester was from January of 2019 until May of 2019, and during that time we had 5 classes. We were doing most of our core content classes before we started student teaching because there's no way we could be doing 5 classes and having full days of student teaching at the same time. So I really like the way that the program broke it up for us, so that way we could get everything done in kind of a short period of time in just a 1.5 years, but we also were never too overloaded with classes and student teaching at the same time, which I'll get into in the next 2 parts. So the way that we did the first semester of student teaching was it was 2 half days and 1 full day. So our program didn't have any rules in terms of what 3 days we chose, but they had to be back to back, which means we couldn't do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We had to do 3 consecutive days. So I chose my days as Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Monday, I did a half day. It was a nice, easy start to the week. Tuesday, I was there from the morning until the afternoon with no afternoon classes afterwards. And then Wednesday, it was that built-in half day in which we got out at lunchtime. It was also really nice because my 2nd grade team did a grade level planning at lunch. So I was able to stay during that grade level planning on Wednesdays at lunchtime so I could kind of see how the grade level operated and how they chose to plan lessons for the upcoming week. 2nd semester of student teaching, we went 5 full days. So the first semester was kind of just to get us warmed up, get us used to being in the classroom, and then we jumped right on in for the final semester in which we were there 5 days, 5 full days every single week. So again, no 2 programs are alike, no 2 teacher education programs alike, no student teaching experiences alike. The way that our program set it up was we kind of got to choose our district, or we chose 3 districts that are close enough to our house that we thought we would want to student teach in. For me personally, when I moved to San Jose, I lived in downtown. I wanted to live in a fun urban area, but I knew that I was spending most of my time in smaller suburbs outside of the city because I was still nannying and babysitting. So I figured that the best place for me to be was in a small suburb, because ideally I knew that I wanted to be a teacher in maybe a small suburb town instead of a big urban area like downtown. So in addition to choosing our districts, we also got to choose our grade level. We had to choose a grade level band. So the way that they had us do this was they wanted us to do our ideal grade levels for the full-time placement. So I knew that I was hoping to be placed in a 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade class for my full-time student teaching, which meant I wanted to do my part-time student teaching in either a kinder, 1st, or 2nd grade class. And that's just personal preference. I know for me, I really love the higher level curriculum content of the upper grade elementary classrooms. So I was hoping that I would be placed in 3rd through 5th. So I made sure that during the first section of student teaching, I was placed in kinder or 1st or 2nd. So once the school had contacted districts and had us placed, we were put into small seminar groups. So we had our large cohort, which all started at the same time and would end at the same time. But I really liked the way that San Jose State did the program, in which that 1 supervisor and 5 teacher candidates that supervisor would oversee. So I had the most amazing supervisor. She was so receptive to us, really caring, really respectful, and she gave us great feedback. We felt like we could go to her for everything, and I honestly owe a lot of my student teaching expertise and experience to to my supervisor. So the way that they set that up was those 5 teacher candidates were all placed within the same district. In addition to our small cohort all being in the same district, we were also placed in similar grade levels. So we all started in that primary K through 2 band, and then in the second semester, which again I'll talk about later, we all got to move up at the same time. So another part of our program was the observations, solo weeks, and formative assessments. So the way that the observations worked was we would have 2 video observations and 4 in-person observations. We would plan those with our mentor teacher and with our supervisor and find a day and time that worked best for the 3 of us. We would write up a lesson plan. We would either team plan that with our mentor teacher, or we could plan it on our own. We would write that up, and then we would submit it to our supervisor 2 days before we were planning on teaching that lesson. So she could give us feedback, she could have us edit it where it needed, she could ask us questions just to clarify what we were planning on doing, or just tell us constructive feedback of how we could possibly make the lesson better. Then on the day of the lesson, she would come in and I would be observed, of course, by my mentor teacher and my supervisor as well. After the lesson, I got to go outside and kind of debrief with my supervisor, and she would ask us questions like, what do you think went well? What do you think didn't go as well? How would you change this lesson to benefit more students in the future? Who do you think really did benefit from this lesson? It was really nice to have that in the moment debriefing, and then we would do a formal write-up reflection of our lesson afterwards. In addition to observations, we had 2 solo weeks. So during those solo weeks, we were to plan the whole day. We were planning all of the lessons that we would be present for from the beginning of the day until lunchtime, or the beginning of the day until the end of the day. So even though we were supposed to be slowly taking on more responsibilities, the first couple weeks we just kind of observed, and then we started jumping in and really planning lessons and teaching alongside our mentor teacher. So for those solo weeks, it was our time to shine. We were planning lessons, prepping the activities, and teaching the lessons as well. So the first solo week we had about halfway through the semester, and the second solo week we had towards the end. We also had 2 formative assessments, and those assessments kind of fell right after our solo week. So we had a mid-semester assessment in which we were assessed on how we were achieving the TPE goals for student teachers, which I'll have a list of all of the TPEs right now. I believe there's 6 of them, TPE 1 through 6, so I'll just kind of put a general idea over here. So we were scored on our performance assessment of how we were achieving those goals. Whether we were approaching, if we were meeting and proficient in those goals, or if we were achieving those goals. And then at the end of the semester, after our last solo week and as we were wrapping it up, we had a formative assessment in which our supervisor and our mentor teacher and I would all meet together and kind of talk about my next steps and if I was ready for full-time student teaching, which of course we all were. We were all going to go into full-time student teaching, but we made goals for what I was hoping to accomplish in the full-time student teaching placement. Let's get into part 2. So part 2 is my student teaching experience in a 2nd grade classroom. Like I said, I would prefer to be in primary for my part-time, and I was placed in the 2nd grade, and it was so wonderful. I met my mentor teacher prior to the first day of school, so I was able to come in a couple days before school started and kind of help her prep the classroom, talk about how the first day was going to go. It was so much fun because I got to be present on my kiddos' first day of school. So when they walked in, not only was there my mentor teacher, who is obviously their primary teacher, but there was also me as well. So it was really exciting for them because they're only in 2nd grade. None of them had had a student teacher prior to me. So it was kind of fun for me to be like their first experience, having another teacher in the classroom, having a student teacher. It was so much fun just from the start. But in addition to having great kiddos, I had an amazing mentor teacher. My 2nd grade mentor teacher was so great. She was 5 years older than me and had already been teaching for 5 years as well. And she had gotten her credential from the San Jose State program too. So she kind of knew how the program worked, what was expected of me, and she really knew how to help me. And also because she wasn't a super veteran teacher, she had only been teaching for 5 years, she really gave me awesome tips that are great for first-year teachers to know. So like I said, my mentor teacher was awesome. She really let me observe the first week, and then she just kind of wanted me to jump right in. I was planning read-alouds, I was planning ELA rotations and ELA lessons, I was teaching writing and math at the same time. So I had an awesome experience. My mentor teacher, again, was super understanding, and she really gave me the opportunity to experience so many different parts of the school day. Not only did she have me teach lessons, but she also invited me to the grade level planning meetings. I participated in IEP meetings and SST meetings and student data collection days with the rest of the second grade team and the principal. And I think that that's one of my biggest takeaways from student teaching. So I would highly recommend that you check in with your mentor teacher and see if that is something that you could be a part of. I learned so much from meeting with administration, meeting with the grade level team, and meeting with students' parents in IEP meetings and SST meetings. Because it was such a positive experience in my classroom, I was able to make really good connections with my students and their parents. Because of that, I was actually allowed to participate in parent-teacher conferences. Like I said, I had worked with a lot of these students, I had spoken to a lot of their parents, so when I met with my mentor teacher and their parents, I already had a wealth of knowledge to instill upon them in terms of how their student was doing in school, their strengths, their areas of growth, and things that they could be doing with their student at home to improve their learning in the classroom. So overall, my experience in second grade seriously surpassed all of my expectations. I had no idea how strong of a connection I was going to make with those kiddos. I loved them so much, and the way that they loved me really touched my heart. I had so much joy going into my second grade class, working with them, teaching them how to read and teaching them math skills, and just seeing how much they grew from August of the beginning of the year until December, when unfortunately I had to leave and start my second semester of student teaching. So that brings me into part 3 of this video, my experience student teaching in a 5th grade class. Alright, so for my 5th grade student teaching experience, I was placed in a school within the same district. The way that our program was set up was that we had to have 2 grade levels in between our first semester of student teaching and our second semester of student teaching. So because I had second grade to start with, I couldn't do 3rd grade and I couldn't do 4th grade, which meant I had to do student teaching in a 5th grade classroom, which I was more than excited to do. We were within the same district, within our same small cohort, with our same supervisor, and going into the second semester, it was a lot less intimidating because we had been teaching before and we had been student teachers, but I'm not gonna lie, it was a little bit scary jumping from 2nd grade to 5th grade. The content standards in 5th grade are really dense, really wide. There's so much that you need to cover in 5th grade. So jumping from 2 half days and 1 full day in a 2nd grade class to 5 full days in a 5th grade class was quite an adjustment. However, as we all know, 5th graders are a lot more independent than 2nd graders. So even though there was a lot more things for me to plan and a lot more lessons for me to prep and whatnot in terms of the wide curriculum and standards that we needed to accomplish, the students were able to complete a lot of the activities in small groups or independently. So with 5th grade, because it was such a big jump, I decided to do a lot of observation during the first week. We rotated for science and ELA and social studies. The only time that all of my students were there were kind of like during the beginning of the day and for the math section, and then we saw them again in the afternoon for writing. But a lot of the times I was interacting with a bunch of 5th graders. I would stay with my mentor teacher, but I was also meeting 2 other groups of 5th grade students as well. So instead of just staying in my small bubble of 2nd grade with 23 kids and 1 mentor teacher, I had not only 32 5th graders in one class, but I had 96 5th graders to get to know, which was really great because I had a lot of experience working with several different students who have different language learning needs and different IEP goals. So after that first week, I really jumped in. I started teaching social studies and I started teaching math, as well as our social emotional learning, or SEL, section of the day. The hardest part about my 5th grade student teaching placement was I did feel really overwhelmed. My mentor teacher had given me a lot of freedom, which was great, but I almost needed a little bit more support from her. But I didn't always feel like I could go to her. I don't know what that was about. I was just really nervous. I felt like it was a big jump from 2nd to 5th grade, and she gave me so much freedom that I needed a little bit more structure. So don't be intimidated by your mentor teacher. Definitely ask for what you need. They are there to support you, and they are there to benefit your teaching and your learning as a student teacher candidate. So make sure you're really open and have that positive communication with your mentor teacher, because if not, you're not going to achieve the goals and you're maybe not going to be teaching at your best possible abilities. The other part of my 5th grade experience that was kind of interesting was we went from January until May, but we didn't start until the very last week of January, because even though we'd been placed in a school at a district, we were still going by our San Jose State College schedule. So even though the students had started on like January 12th, we didn't actually meet them until like the last week of January. I observed the last week of January. I kind of started jumping in the 1st and 2nd week of February, but the 3rd week of February, my students were actually going away to science camp Because I was not registered to go to science camp, I was not a chaperone, they didn't know about me by the time that they were planning for science camp back in October, I was unable to go to science camp. Instead, a third grade teacher was actually out for a week on a family emergency, so it was really nice that I got to step in and do a long-term subbing to fill that week, and I was feeling really ready to take on that week of third grade. After that week, we had President's Week, so there were 2 weeks that I was not even seeing my fifth graders. After that, it was the beginning of March, so I started off really strong in March, and I was teaching a lot more than I had prior. The second week of March was actually my first solo week, and oh my goodness, you guys, I can't even begin to tell you how tired I was during solo week. There is so much to prep, so much to plan, so much content that you need to teach in fifth grade. I was not ready for that. I was so tired at the end of every single day. It was very exhausting and really draining. And I think because I had kind of had that weird schedule of not being with them, 6 weeks at that point, I should have been with them, but I had really only seen them for 4 weeks. And 3 of those weeks were ones that I was teaching. 1 of them was observation. So I kind of felt like I was trying my best during my solo week, but I was definitely nervous jumping into it. Luckily, I really loved my students. I think they had a great connection with me, and the week went really well. It was exhausting, it was really tiring, but as I kind of gained momentum, once we hit Wednesday, I was really shining and I felt like I was succeeding as a student teacher. That last Friday of my solo week, I was feeling strong and I was feeling confident, and I was looking forward to bettering my teaching practice in the weeks to come. However, during the lunchtime, our principal called us into an emergency staff meeting, and she told us that we were going to be closing the schools for 3 weeks due to the coronavirus outbreak. And I was crushed. I knew that I had only a couple months left of student teaching. I was really starting to gain more momentum. I was feeling comfortable teaching in front of a large group of students, teaching fifth grade content and curriculum. And I knew that I still had so much to learn. I had such high expectations for myself as a student teacher, and I was feeling like, oh my goodness, like we're not going to have school for 3 weeks. How in the world am I supposed to catch up? Those are 3 really important weeks that I needed to become a better teacher. So that was really scary for me. During those 3 weeks, we had a full-on break. We were not allowed to assign any content. Students were not working on anything. And then we did honor that spring break. So not only were there 3 weeks that we were not in school, but the week after was spring break. So there was 4 weeks, 1 full month that I was not interacting with students, not planning lessons, not teaching lessons. And that was really hard for me. As we all know, we did not end up going back to school for the 2019-2020 school year, which meant I had to finish my student teaching online virtually through distance learning. During our month off, I had some communication with my mentor teacher, but honestly, the school and the district and the staff were really just trying to figure out how we were going to make this work. I knew that she was there for me as her student teacher, but I also kind of had to take a step back and realize that like, these are not my students, these are not my parents, this is not my classroom. So I was there and ready and willing to help my mentor teacher with anything she needed help with, but I did know that in this unprecedented time, there was no input that I could really give that would benefit the situation. At this point, it was now middle of April. It was like April 12th, and my last day of student teaching was May 15th. And I knew that we were not going back to the classroom, so I talked to my mentor teacher to just kind of see what the plan was going to be that we were going to roll out for the rest of the school year. We were able to start doing distance learning on sites like Google Classroom and Seesaw were the 2 platforms that we chose to use the most. I helped her out by prepping math videos, teaching math lessons virtually, and also planning for ELA lessons as well. She and I discussed that it would probably be in my best interest to still continue to do a solo week, so I was really happy that I got to plan and execute those lessons during my solo week, even though it wasn't in person. So during that solo week, I had 2 class meetings on Monday and Friday that were already set that we had been doing. So I met with students on Monday morning for an hour, Friday morning for an hour, and then I also hosted 2 office hours, which was on Tuesday and Thursday. The students were given all of their assignments for the week at once on Friday nights. So on Monday, I was able to kind of go over the lesson, make sure everyone understood what they needed to do, and then if they had any questions throughout the week, they could come to my office hours on Tuesday or Thursday, and I would take that time to kind of break down the lesson, answer questions, take a reteaching moment if that's what they needed, and just kind of be there for any and all support they required during our distance learning time. So there were about 2 weeks where I helped my mentor teacher facilitate distance learning. There was my one solo week where I collected all of the work, I planned all the work, I graded all the work, and I met with students via Zoom. And then there was one final week where I just went back to assisting my mentor teacher and participating in Zoom calls, but I wasn't the one hosting them and I wasn't the one in charge of them. So overall, even though it was kind of a weird, not ideal by any means end of my student teaching experience, I thought it was really great that I was still included. I really enjoyed participating in distance learning and learning more about different online educational learning platforms, so that was really nice. It's unfortunate there was a whole month that I lost. I wasn't able to teach or learn or plan for anything, but I think in that uncertainty, we did the best that we could. The district did what they could, my mentor teacher did what she could, and I did what I could. So yeah, and then I finished my student teaching on May 15th, and we had like a Zoom party, which was really fun. It wasn't exactly the end that we all thought it would be, but I know my students and myself and my mentor teacher had been through so much, and we really did try our best during the whole time of distance learning. All right, and that is my student teaching experience. Remember, no two programs are alike, no two student teaching experiences are going to be alike. This is just my experience that I had through the program at San Jose State University, which I would highly recommend. I think the way that the program was set up really did work for me. Even though it didn't end in the way that I wanted it to, or the way that any of us predicted it would, I do feel like it gave me what I needed to succeed during my first year of teaching. You're never going to be ready as a first year teacher. There's always so much for us to learn, but I definitely think that over the course of the 2019-2020 school year, I was able to learn a lot and really become an effective educator to the best of my ability during my first year. So with that being said, thank you so much for clicking on this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a comment down below so I can interact with you there. And last but not least, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you have not already. Bye friends.